I traveled Australia around 2007, 2008, and if don't know if you remember, but we had a little thing called a recession. So I came back to basically zero jobs in non-existent job market. So I took on a whole bunch of sort of temporary office type work, and I got very comfortable doing that to the point where I just sort of went from one to the other, one to the other. Did that for a few years, got a bit bored of it, wanted to do something different, and I ended up working as a support worker in a care home for young adults with autism. It was very different from what I was doing before, because obviously a lot of it was sort of data entry, spreadsheets, the kind of stuff I have zero attention span for. Like you sort of look at them and then you go cross-eyed, basically. That was me. The turnover was very high at these sort of places because it was so draining, and because of the repetition, they would have their routines, so everything would sort of be the same. And if they fell out of their routines, that could be sort of a trigger to upset them or turn them into sort of these violent versions of themselves. After like a year and a half, I sort of started to get burned out and I wanted to try something different. So it was in January where I made a portfolio website on Squarespace. And I just put a whole bunch of my art on there, and I saw that this company Chucklefish were hiring and they were opening an office in London. And I sort of jumped at the chance for that. I sent an email like straight away with a link to my portfolio and saying that I really wanted to sort of work on this new game they were working on. They announced it as like a pirate game. They didn't say anything else. They just said, we're going to make a pirate game. And I was like, I want to make a pirate game. So I sent them an email and I got a reply back from Donna. Over a period of a few days, there was like talk on Skype with Finn. Not like voice chat, it was all like through messages. I was really nervous because I didn't want to blow it, obviously. He eventually agreed to have me come into the office for an interview. I walked upstairs to this unmarked door. I knocked on the door and I opened the door, and I just opened the door to an empty room with two people in it and a whole bunch of empty tables sort of assembling furniture. And my first question was, is this Chucklefish? And I think it was Finn and Donna who were there, so they were the first two people I ever met at Chucklefish. And they were like, yeah, come in. And so that's kind of how it started. It was very informal. Donna has this sort of excitable energy to her, and I really sort of bounced off that. And it was almost like a really nice chat, basically. I think at one point I ended up helping them assemble a bunch of furniture. And they like to joke that that's what got me the job, like, because I came across as like handy or something. In the end, I sort of messaged them back on Skype again. And I was like, oh, hey, how's it going? And I got sort of called in again to do an art test. And I was sort of brought in to sort of draw and animate a pirate. And I kind of spent the whole day in the office just doing that. And I basically got told at the end of it that I had the job. So that was really cool. I think pixel art for me, I've always kind of enjoyed it. When I used to go to my Nan's house, she had this like super old beige Windows 3.1, kind of took 10 years to boot up, made like mechanical sounds. It had like MS Paint on it, and so that's kind of how I got into it. Like I would just spend hours just sort of doodling in MS Paint, and like, you know, everything in MS Paint was comprised of pixels, so that's kind of how I remember sort of getting into it. This was the kind of thing that everyone kind of assumed I would end up doing. Like they were like, oh, you should like, don't waste it. You could be like a comic book artist or that kind of thing. And I always had that in the back of my mind, and I think that sort of thing eventually pushed me to at least try it. But I was always scared to, basically. I always felt like I wasn't good enough. I think everyone kind of has that. I'm not very technical with things like Photoshop or anything like that. I've always just sort of opened it up and sort of thrown myself at it and seen what I could do with it. So I'm quite a messy worker. I don't want to be like super cliche and be like, he's messy, but he gets the job done. But it's a bit like that. I keep being told that when I first started, my art was not like it wasn't close to like how good it is now. So that's really nice to hear. And I think a lot of that is just from being in this space with other artists, because it can be like a real solitary kind of exercise, because it's just you, sort of your what's up here, and then like a pen, and then you just kind of, no one really like sees it unless you share it, kind of thing. But when you're in this kind of workspace and like you're encouraged to share your work in progress stuff, like you can get like such immediate feedback on it, and it just, everything just sort of is boosted or taken up to the next level. I think that's really, really cool. My mom, when I was growing up, it was always kind of like, what are you doing on the computer? You're spending all this time on the computer. You're not like doing anything with it. So she always saw it as kind of like me just kind of goofing off. And I would show her like stuff that I would make, and she would kind of always look at it like, oh yeah, it's cool, but like, are you going to make money off it, kind of thing? Like, I think from her perspective, it was always like from a place of like, do you have a plan? Like, maybe I perceived it differently, I guess. But I always took it like she didn't value it, basically. So it's nice to have like a job doing it and get paid to do it, because it's kind of like, you see, it wasn't all just a waste of time. Like, I planned the whole thing out. Like, I didn't plan it out, it just happened. I felt like I fell into it accidentally. I think a lot of it came down to sort of ignorance and not knowing much about it. So I think you can forgive them for that, because, you know, it's not something that they grew up with. I think it was hard for me growing up, but then getting this sort of job maybe opened up their eyes a little bit, that, you know, you can make money from it, and, you know, it's not any harder than anything else. Like with music, you put a lot of work and time into it, and with games, it's the same thing. But I think, you know, with the media, like, I think for a while, video games were the scapegoat. Like comic books were the scapegoat before. And I think it'll be something else in 10 years, something else. Like, I hope as a generation we don't do that to our kids. Like, the new big thing is ruining our culture, kind of thing. I don't know what that would even be. Maybe VR.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Doris.
Hello, my name is Doris.
It's flawless.
Flawless. Je suis un petit peu stressée par l'événement qui va se dérouler à Resd. Je pense qu'il va pas réussir à traduire ça.
I am a little bit stressed by the event that will take place.